Hello and welcome to the Rabyd Atheist. I'm Ed Rabyd, a former pastor turned atheist, now compassionate anti-theist. Welcome to my channel. Feel free to like or dislike the video as you see fit, so feel free to hit those buttons. Feel free to comment below, and I would appreciate it if you would subscribe to the channel and hit your notification bell for more content as it is released. You're also free to share my videos as much as you like, because the purpose of this channel is educational in regards to atheist and deconversion issues and any other issues related to those issues. A hearty shout out to the Rabyd Nation. Join the nation by hitting that subscribe button, and if you want to become a paying member, a citizen of the Rabyd Nation, hit the join button. Your options will be presented. Today I want to go on Sundays with the Rabyd Atheist for November 26, 2023. And on this edition for our agenda today, I want to talk about not defining terms. I also want to talk about a question I was asked: do I listen to myself? Then I also want to talk some notes on philosophy and things like that, and what I give value to it and what I don't. And then I want to talk a little bit about reminding atheists in particular, what atheism is. How sometimes we have to do that, and it seems a little weird. So let's kick it off right away with not defining terms. I had a comment where somebody asked me, do you believe in absolute truth? And my response was, well, what do you mean by truth? And then it eventually got into this long discussion where I never could get a definition of truth out of the commenter, to the point where I realized I think they were just trolling me. I have a very low tolerance for trolls, so I blocked them, just so you know. I find it very dishonest. And the excuse was, well, you know, language is instinctive. You know what I mean by truth. No, I don't. I genuinely don't know. Okay, because I think that's an oversimplification of saying that language is just, we know what terms mean. If that was the case, there would be no need for dictionaries, okay, at all, okay, for any reason. I know that they're not like authoritative or anything, but it doesn't change the fact that, you know, many of us want the terms defined. In fact, if you're engaged in a discussion or argument and there may be some question, well, what do you mean by that term? It is a very harmless and innocuous question to ask. And the fact that this person spent an inordinate, like 10, 15 comments ignoring the question, wouldn't answer it, just drove me nuts. Okay, if you don't define your terms when I ask for them, I'm just going to move along, okay, because you're not telling me what we're talking about. Okay, and in this case, truth has multiple levels of definitions, and it got very frustrating. It's like, no, there's several definitions of truth that I have depending on the context of how they use the word. So which one are we using? And no, finally I had to define, you know, well, you're being very combative, you're being militant. And I'm like, no, I'm just asking a question. Okay, and I don't know where he got that idea. I think he was just, you know, starting to engage in some sort of persecution complex. But it's like, dude, I'm not being militant. I'm just asking for your terms. Tell me what your terms are. Okay. And, you know, he wanted me to answer the question without knowing what he meant about truth. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to do that. Okay, if you don't define for me your terms, I'm going to consider it a license to just move along and get along with things. And I'll be honest, it's rude. Okay, if somebody asks you what they mean by something, your proper response is, well, you know instinctively what I mean. No, they don't. You've got to say, oh, well, what I mean, you know, the polite thing to do is to answer the question. I try to answer questions like that and define my terms when somebody asks me what I mean by certain things. And I think it's only polite to do so. I think, you know, for those of you out there probably going, well, that's a weirdo, it's a troll. Yeah, I get that. But I see a lot of people avoid defining terms and, you know, that sort of thing. And, you know, so, you know, we have this notion that around here, at least, that if I need a definition of a term, just give it. It's a harmless, simple thing to do. Just do it. And I don't understand that people that avoid it. All right, number 2 on today's ed. Somebody asked me, do you listen to yourself, dude? You are so illogical, whatever, blah, blah, blah. All right, process of Ed making a video. Ed writes out an outline. often based on research, something else that he's done, and he writes out an outline of what he wants to do. In this particular case, the comment was on the case against God, the arguments against God's existence, and one of the videos, I think number 5. And what this person eventually revealed is I had to ask them, I don't think you really got the gist of the video. You're accusing me of making this argument. And that happens on that series a lot, by the way. People make comments, and it's like, did you even listen to the video? Probably not. Because you're telling me that you didn't listen to it. Because every video in that series, I start out with, I'm examining these things. And so all I'm doing in the first part of the video is like regurgitating what other people who make this case against God's existence say. And then I'm evaluating it. That's all I'm doing. Okay, I'm not saying that I believe that argument or I give it a weight. I try to look at it from that point of view. Is this a silver bullet? Is it just targeted at a specific God? Whatever. And so, the more I discussed it with this individual, the more it became pretty clear that they completely missed that part of the video, that they just didn't get the gist of the video. And I told them so. And then I said, you missed a very important part that I'm not saying I'm making these claims. And so there you have it. I just find it interesting that people think that way. Well, after I make an outline, how many times do I listen to my videos? Well, I, of course, have to listen to it when I'm recording it, and I make note of things that I want to look back at again. I then, in editing process, I listen to the whole thing again. When I upload it on YouTube, I don't necessarily listen to the whole thing, but I do try to premiere every video, so I've listened to it again. So at least twice, maybe 3 times sometimes. And I listen to it for things that are wrong, things I may have to edit, things that I may have to put a note on in the comments or something. And so if I'm floating a video, it's pretty much gone through a process. And so if somebody wants to say, my reasoning's bad, they better point it out. And that's what I asked them to do. Show me specifically what reasoning was bad. Wouldn't do it. Another theist avoiding, scrutiny. Avoiding like, hey, dude, well, show me where I'm wrong. Okay, where's my reasoning missteps? Oh, well, I don't feel like, it's like, and it's like, dude, you're just dropping a drive-by comment and then somebody called you on it and now you're mad about it. Don't be a coward. I'm so tired of these cowards where I ask a question to find terms, or I say, well, point out what you're saying. You're making this claim that my reasoning is bad. Can you point that out? I would gladly correct it if I'm wrong. And they don't do it. They don't do it at all. Number 3 today, notes on philosophy. This kind of came up, if you guys haven't checked out the Kentucky Atheist site, I'll link it in the description, but I went over there, I'm recording this on Saturday, went over there Friday night to a live stream, and then I also got comments more recently about metaphysics and things like that, and there was a discussion on philosophy for a bit, and I want to throw in my 2 cents of how valuable philosophy is for me. I think philosophy has created some very valuable tools in discovering whether our reasoning is correct, but it doesn't do very good when it comes to establishing fact. In fact, you can use philosophy to kind of establish any fact that you want to if you use it right, and you have to kind of judge that. And so I find philosophy and metaphysics limited in the scope of what they can do. I also find a lot of it, when theists use philosophy and stuff, it's all about trying to avoid the question of what is your evidence. They want to find a way to assert an assertion without evidence and still treat it as factual. And a lot of Christian philosophy, to me, when I think back at it on my readings of Christian philosophy, that's exactly what they're doing. They're just trying to justify making certain assertions without evidence. I'm sorry, if God created the world, there should be empirical evidence for it. If God wrote this morality on our hearts, then there should be some evidence for it. Okay, evidence should be there of God's activities, and it just isn't, okay, no matter what you say. It's a lot of it's colossal arguments from ignorance, this doesn't have any explanation, therefore God, on and on it goes. And so when I think about philosophy, for me, I've studied a lot of philosophy, some religion philosophy. I took philosophy at Ferris as part of my requirements. And why did I do all that? Because it causes you to think about things. And when you kind of look at ethics and morality and you look at it from a standpoint of, do we need God or anything to do anything about that? And the answer is no. No, we don't. And so for me, philosophy has some valuable tools. I mean, the guys that do logic, great. You know, you come up with logical fallacies, you deal with that. That's a philosophical end. Certain philosophical systems, I think, align with reality and allow a person to live with reality, but they're not hard and fast and ironclad. And that's the way I think of philosophy and metaphysics and a lot of other things. There's a lot of things to talk about, but there isn't a lot of things to put in a hard, fast rule. And I think that's done on purpose. It keeps the waters muddied. You know, it allows a person to make an assertion, treat it as truth, but not provide any evidence for it because I have this philosophical backing for it. And that doesn't necessarily make it true. Okay, philosophy is good in giving us a groundwork for life. I mean, I'm a Stoic. I follow Stoic philosophy as much as possible. I'm constantly working at it. But I don't treat it like, you know, I treated the Bible. You know, if there's parts of it I don't like and want to throw out because they don't work, I do that. Okay, I'm very pragmatic in my philosophy. And, you know, I don't care what philosophers believed what about God. I don't care. Because I think they were wrong. Okay? You can keep them in there, that's fine. I don't get it. All right? Philosophy is a valuable tool created by human beings, and because of that, it's flawed. And so there's other things to do. I would much rather hinge my understanding of the universe on something that's empirically proven, rather than somebody who's just making up crap so they can deny that they're making an assertion without evidence. Okay? Back up your assertions with some evidence. And if you don't do that, I think that there's a problem. All right, last one. Reminding atheists what atheism is. Now, why would I have to do that? Why does that happen? Because so many times I'm on atheist channels and atheists assume that certain things are true if you're an atheist. Now, we've all heard it, where the apologist says something about atheists, you have to be secular, believe in evolution. And rightly, everybody starts out that conversation, well, you misdefined what atheism is. It's simply a lack of belief in any God. Okay? But then I'll hear, oh, we got to unify the atheist community. We've got to, we got to embrace secularism and naturalism and, and go down that path. Make sure when you're voting for the atheist candidate, the best candidate for atheism. And it's like, atheism, gentlemen, is only the non-belief in gods or goddesses. That's it. I have to remind you atheists of this, okay? The point of the fact of the matter is, and I've made this statement before, you can take the political philosophies out, divorce them from their religion, and that is perfectly okay. Okay, there have been conservative atheist people who take a conservative atheist political stance. I have met pro-life atheists. And I don't find that a contradiction because it doesn't actually contradict with their atheism. Okay? Atheism is simply the non-belief in God. And why is it that I have to remind people that are atheists what the definition is? Because all of a sudden I'm supposed to be a secularist. I am one of those. I'm supposed to be, a humanist. I am one, but not because atheism tells me to. Okay? I'm suddenly supposed to be a supporter of evolution, Big Bang, and all this other crap. That's part of my atheistic worldview. No. It's funny how you'll rah-rah me if I'm saying that to a theist, but if an atheist comes up to me and say, oh, we should be doing this, supporting this political candidate, I'm like, no, I'm not going to support that asshole. Okay? And people just go, huh? Well, I thought you were an atheist. Atheism just has to do with non-God belief. It doesn't have to do with politics, economics, or any of that shit. Okay, I love you all. Okay, and when I see people, like the Kentucky Atheist was bemoaning a little bit of a tiff he had with a group about Hamas and Israel, and it's like, you do realize that you can hold the view that both of these people are bad guys, and they've just been stupidly killing each other over a piece of land for nothing, for no reason, for millennia. We can say that they're both crap, right? That's not a cop-out. That's just not being tribalistic, okay? I think it's tribalism to think you have to take a side in every conflict. That's a load of shit. When Ukraine-Russian war went off, I'm like, well, yeah, the two presidents of these two countries are kind of shit, okay? And their governments are both shit. Why should I back one or the other? Just let them fight it out. I don't know. See, that's my problem. It's been my problem since coming into the atheist community. I mean, remember a few months ago, Matt Dillahunty was talking about how we need to unify the secular community and all this other crap. And it's like, I get what you're saying, bro, but from an atheistic standpoint, the only thing I'm going to unite with most of these people on is keeping God out of it, okay? Making the state secular. That's all I'm going to do. I might be a secularist in that regard, but that doesn't mean on moral issues and economic issues and other issues, other social issues, that I'm not going to look at the liberal, leftist, whatever, and go, yeah, that's where I belong. I don't have that view. I belong there on some social issues. I belong there on some other issues. I tend to be on the right for other issues, okay? Other social issues and other things. And the reason is, if I'm going to sit there and say, I don't accept the God claim from these people, I also take a skeptical eye when even a secularist comes up, this is the proper solution to this problem in society. And I'll look at it and go, no, I don't think so. But it's the secular solution. It's one of the secular solutions. And that's what secularists and humanists need to realize, that just because it's politically popular and expedient to have this solution be pushed doesn't mean it's an actual solution or that it'll work. And that's been my problem, because I really want to join the secular community, but there's like this assumption that you have to be a leftist or you have to be woke or whatever, and I don't have time for that. Okay, now a lot of atheists are against woke for obvious reasons, but it's like, I'm not going to sit there and you need to remind yourself what atheism is. I may be an atheist, but I have differing views with Democrats and leftists on several key issues to me. Now, and I understand that conservatism and liberalism have changed their definitions over the years. They're constantly slippery and constantly doing things, but there's a political philosophy behind both those systems that has nothing to do with religion. And one can be a conservative atheist and a libertarian atheist and a liberal atheist. You can be all over the map because it has nothing to do with atheism. Just like secularism doesn't have anything to do with atheism. Humanism, naturalism don't necessarily have anything to do with atheism. We need to remember that as atheists. Quit assuming that because you're an atheist, somebody's going to agree with you 100%. Okay? I hesitate to use this example because I disagree with the guy. But Richard Dawkins keeps taking flack for his comments on trans. Now, I realize that he's not being evil, okay? He's ignorant, okay? Or he's mistaken, or he's misguided. Because here's the thing about it. Everybody's calling him a bigot. Here's my problem with that assessment. Bigotry assumes evil, that he's doing it on purpose to marginalize or diminish somebody. I don't think he's doing that. He's just saying he doesn't buy the trans claim. Okay, just like you don't buy the God claim as an atheist, he's not buying the trans claim. So what do we tell theists to do when they say, well, why don't you believe it? Well, I don't buy your God claim. Why don't you come up with better evidence? And I think it's perfectly reasonable for Richard Dawkins to look at people and say, listen, I just don't believe it. I'm not saying, I've never heard him say that he's going to deny trans people their rights to become trans, that he's going to, march against them having any kind of civil rights or whatever. I've never heard him do that. He just doesn't buy the claim. Okay? So what should be the response? Make better evidence for your claim. Okay? Convince him. Okay? And I'm sorry, I think an opportunity is lost. I think we're too quick to assume evil and not quick enough to assume like ignorance or incompetence or some combination thereof. I think when I look at Dawkins, okay, let's look at his background. He's a geneticist. When he looks at genetics and looks at a biological reason for trans, he doesn't see it. Okay? He sees XXXY. Okay? Because that's what he studies. Okay? When he looks at trans from a psychological point of view, we're talking about the guy who wrote The God Delusion and spent a lot of time, looking at what delusion is. And so I can understand where he, even though I disagree with him, would look at it and go, I just think it's delusional and I don't see it in genetics. So I think it's a bad claim. Now, there's other fields that could rear their ugly heads and say, listen, there's other things to look at. But nobody's done that. See, because you've shut down the discussion by just calling him a bigot. And I just think he's ignorant of something. That if somebody could come along with the right evidence, he would change his mind. He's done that many times. And I also, this is going to piss some of you off, probably, I don't care. I don't dismiss somebody's value simply because they have a viewpoint that I disagree with. I think the term bigot has been far too used that it's lost its meaning. I think if you're going to use that term, there has to be a malicious intent to stop somebody else from having their rights. And I don't see that out of Dawkins. Okay, I see a guy who disagrees with the trans argument. Well, make a better trans argument. Okay, don't call him a bigot, just make it better. I've complained about this because I don't think I'm a man trapped in a woman's body or I'm a woman trapped in a man's body is sufficient evidence. I could easily say, well, I'm a Christian because I have the Holy Spirit living inside me. That claim and the claims I just mentioned about men and women have exactly the same amount of proof. 0. Okay? And that's why it's a bad argument. Okay? What you really need to do is make better arguments and start convincing people. And actually, people that disagree with you, if you can convince them, become much more convincing from a popularity standpoint. The problem I have with the younger generations, I love you all, but you tend to think with your emotions when it comes to social issues. And instead of coming up with a better case, you just decry somebody as a bigot. Oh, you hurt my feelings, and I'm going to decry you as a bigot. And that'll fix you. No, it doesn't fix the problem. It just shows that you don't have a better argument and you need to find one. And I know this is hard to take, and you can call me whatever you want, okay? Because as I will remind you about trans, for instance, I have probably the most open view of trans is. If medical technology allows a person to do it, I don't care what their reason is. They should be allowed to do it. It's their body. Okay, so I'm not denying anybody their rights or thoughts. I'm just saying, and I think trans is a thing. I don't think it's as popular and as massive as people are making it out to be. I have large problems with giving puberty blockers to children, and for the same reason I have problems with religious people, doing physical things to their kids as well. Until a child grows up, has the adult capacity to weigh that decision as an adult, they shouldn't be making that decision, and nobody should be making it for them. Okay? That's messing with them, and they need to have the full facts and really get down the road. And that's what we need to focus on. I use that as an example to remind you of what atheist is. None of this discussion has anything to do with Dawkins or anybody's claim of being about God. Okay, and you're allowed to have different views and be an atheist. You're allowed to have different ways of doing. And I wish, for all the talk about diversity of opinion, this would be one great example of sitting down and having discussions instead of screaming and yelling at each other as atheists. But unfortunately, I think people conflate their atheism with something else. That there is, they'll yell at a religious person for there's no such thing as an atheist worldview, but then go and develop an attitude like, well, that's out of the atheist worldview, and it's like, no, it's not. It's just out of the secular worldview, or it's out of the humanist worldview. And being allowed to have differences of opinion that are staggering are definitely allowed within the confines of atheism, because atheism is about one thing: I don't believe in God. That's all it's about. Everything else outside of that, you're sure there's implications of that. There's deconversion elements of that. But it doesn't change the fact that that's all it is. And you got to stop making it more than it is. Okay, we got to stop making it more than it is. All right, thanks everyone for stopping by. I appreciate every single one of you. Every like, share, subscribe certainly helps the YouTube algorithm gods, and they keep me channel chugging along. We keep improving every day, and I appreciate that so much. Thank you very much. As always, live your best life. Don't waste your time on the trappings of religion. Don't give up your time, your talent, your treasure, or any of that stuff for it, because religion and faith are a dead end, I know from experience. Instead, live your life for yourself, for your family, and to better the world at large. Do what you do because you enjoy it, like it, and go forward with it. And I thank all of you once again for stopping by, and I'll catch you next time.